Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is the December 14, 2021 regularly scheduled meeting of the Anchorage Board of Adjustment. I'm Baron Guccio, the chair. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Guccio.
Yes.
Mr. Deek.
Yes, here.
Mr. Stewart.
I'm here. Thank you.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Also, the record should reflect that with us are clerk, Jennifer Bennett Klassen, and our esteemed counsel, Dennis Wheeler. The first item that we need to look at is the agenda that the clerk very nicely prepared for today's meeting. Have you had a chance to look at it? And if so, are there any amendments, changes, deletions that you wish to propose?
I have no amendments.
Mr. Stewart.
I have no amendments.
Okay, Mr. Deek.
No amendments.
Right, and I have no amendments either, and without further ado, the agenda is approved. We then had to the minutes of the Board of Adjustment meeting of December 8. This was sent to you, the draft of this was sent to you by the clerk, and I hope you have had a chance to look at it. Mr. Deek, did you?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
All right, I have two. Are there any additions, deletions, changes that you would like to have these minutes reflect? Mr. Stewart?
I have none, except that I just note that in the chronology, the way it's set up, I think we addressed the, on page 5 at the top of the page, I think we addressed that issue early on, after we addressed the exhibits. So I'm just wondering if that would that be construed by someone looking at it that it's part of the essential issues rather than preliminary items?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Deek.
just a question to clarify this. So the question is about whether the issue of Spinelli's representation was heard earlier than listed on the minutes.
Yes.
I think we did it in that we left it to the end
Did we?
for the purpose
think we did.
for
Okay.
the purposes of.
I have no-
that's my
Okay.
recollection. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I have no other,
Mr.
no
Wheeler,
questions.
maybe you can chime in on this. Is Mr. Deek's recollection correct as far as you're concerned?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. As is mine, I must confess. Mr. Stewart, anything else that you wish to address regarding the minutes of the December 8th meeting?
No.
Mr. Deek, do you have any changes, additions to this?
No, I think it captures what we have accomplished. So no.
Okay. I have nothing further regarding those minutes. I will then simply move to adopt the minutes and to approve the minutes of the meeting of December 8th, 2021. And I would like to have a second, and Mr. Stewart.
Second.
All right. Any discussion, any further discussion? Seeing none, I think we are ready to vote, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Guccio.
Yes,
Mr. Deek.
Yes.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes.
thank you, and the motion is approved. The minutes are approved by a vote of 3-0. Moving right along, we then come to the new business, and the business is to consider the proposed findings and decisions of the Board of Adjustment that we considered substantively in BOA Appeal 2021-2. And you have in front of you proposed findings that are quite extensive this time, and I'm looking at 18 pages altogether. And the question is how to proceed on this. Is it perhaps best if we simply go on a page-by-page basis so that we go through it very quickly in the event there are some changes. Is that acceptable, Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Deek?
Yes.
It is, all right. And just to be on the safe side, Mr. Wheeler, does that make sense to you
Yes,
as
sir.
well?
Yes, sir.
All right, so that's what we will do, and we will then turn to page 1 of 18 regarding the findings and decisions of the Board of Adjustment. Are there any additions, changes, deletions that you have, Mr. Stewart?
No.
Mr. Deek?
No, no, page 1 is good.
All right, and I have nothing regarding page 1 as well. We then come to page 2. Are there any additions, deletions, changes regarding the findings on page 2?
I have
Mr.
none.
Stewart. Mr. Stewart has none. Mr. Deek?
None.
And I have none. We then come to page 3. Mr. Stewart, do you have any additions, changes, deletions?
No.
Mr. Deek?
No.
All right, I have a couple minor ones, and it concerns the first paragraph of page 3. In the middle of that paragraph, there is a sentence that starts, Birnbaum may have moved. Oh, no, withdraw that. There's one slightly earlier, and that is at the end of the second line, where it right now reads, appears to be an end around the rule. I would propose that we change that to end run, because I think that's the term.
Thank you. I was like, to the record, for everyone to know, I was thinking that me as the foreigner, I'm going to have to pass on that one for the locals. Thank you, sir. But I noticed it.
Those of us who are first-generation immigrants. Okay, all
Yes.
right. Is that, Mrs. Stewart, is that agreeable with you to add at the end of the second line the word run?
Yes.
And Mr. Deek obviously is in agreement with that.
Yes, I
the
am.
one who proposed it, so I'm in agreement with that. Mr. Wheeler, since you're the one who prepared or proposed this, is that okay with you?
Yes, sir.
All right. So that is, the record should reflect that we add the word run at the end of the second line on page 3. There is a second item that I would like to have slightly changed, and that is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's in the 5th line. There's a sentence that starts, Birnbaum may have moved to supplement. Do you see that?
Yes.
And I would like to change the word may to could, so that the sentence then reads, Birnbaum could have moved to supplement the record. Is that agreeable, Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Deek?
Yes.
And Mr. Wheeler,
Yes,
is that
sir.
okay with you as well? All right, so the record should reflect that the word may is changed to could in the 5th line of the first paragraph on page 3. Moving then to page 4, are there any additions, deletions, changes, Mr. Stewart?
No.
Mr. Deek?
No.
Well, I have one change, and that concerns the last word in the first full paragraph on page 4, where it says accusations. And I would like to change the word accusations to allegations. Is that agreeable, Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr.
That's good.
Deek?
Well, I was going to raise it, but again,
All right.
sounds good. Thank you.
Mr. Wheeler, does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and the record should reflect that the last word of the first full paragraph on page 4 is changed from accusations to allegations. Coming then to page 5, are there any additions, changes, deletions? Mr. Stewart?
I have none.
Mr.
Uh-oh.
Chairman,
Yes.
back on page 4,
Yeah, I think
subject matter number 4, the title, I have in there conflicts of interest of planning board members is not justiciable.
Are not.
It should probably be are not.
Yes. Mr. Stewart, is that agreeable?
Yes.
Mr. Deek?
Yes.
And it's agreeable with me also, so that the word is should be changed to are in the headline of paragraph 4. All right, coming then to paragraph 5.
Page 5.
Page 5, I'm sorry. Mr. Stewart, anything that needs to be added, deleted, changed?
I have none.
Mr. Deek?
No.
All right, I have just one word that needs to be changed, and that's the second to the last line on page 5. It should read, "The planning board did not give interested parties instead of interest parties." Interested.
Yes, sir. Got it.
Mr. Stewart, do you
Interested.
agree with that?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Deek?
Yes.
All right, and our esteemed council nods approval, so that's done. We then come to page 6. Any changes on page 6?
I have none.
Mr. Stewart has none. Mr. Deek?
I was fine with it.
All right, I have just minor ones. I would like to, in the first full paragraph there, it reads right now, "This includes both appellants, Mr. Birnbaum and Ms. Dukoff." I would like to simply delete Mr. and Ms. because that is consistent with the way it has been worded throughout this proposal.
Okay.
Is that agreeable, Mr. Stewart?
Yes, that makes sense.
Mr. Deek?
Yes.
And Mr. Wheeler?
Mr. Chairman, the sentence would be, "This includes both appellants, comma, who both testified," etc.
Yes, so both appellants, comma, Birnbaum and Dukoff.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay? Nothing further on page 6. How about page 7? Anything that needs to be changed on page 7?
I have
Mr.
nothing.
Stewart?
No.
Mr. Deek?
No.
And I have nothing further either. Mr. Wheeler, do you have anything regarding page 7?
I would just like to note that I got one page completely correct. See how I did?
Come on, the first one was correct.
Well,
There were a
Oh,
couple
there's
of.
two.
I
There's two,
think there
yes.
are actually a couple.
I'm
so
sorry.
the record should reflect that that page is completely correct.
Let's not celebrate too early.
Yeah, exactly.
Let us turn to page 8. Any additions, changes, deletions?
I have none.
Mr. Stewart has none. Mr. Deek?
No, I'm fine with this one. Yes.
All right, and I am too. And Mr. Wheeler, this is at least the second page that has no
This
changes
percentage
on
is
it.
going up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So we then come to page 9. Any additions, deletions, changes? Mr. Stewart?
I have none.
Mr. Deek?
No changes.
All right, I have just one, and that is in the last full paragraph. It talks about Mr. Air Drive. It should say Mountain Air Drive.
All right.
Do you
Yeah.
see that?
Good
With the
catch.
construction of
Yes.
Mountain Air Drive. Is that agreeable, Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Deek?
With the very heavy heart. Yes.
Okay. Mr. Wheeler?
I'm trying to find it.
It's
All right,
It's,
it's
what,
the,
the last sentence in that, or
it's-
two before the last sentence.
Second to the last sentence in the full paragraph on page 9. And it talks about the drive that needs to be, that
It would be the
is to be improved. And so it,
third sentence up.
yeah, do you see the word fire hydrants,
Oh.
comma?
Yes, sir, I found it.
All right,
Got
and
it.
following that with the construction of Mountain Air Drive, it should say.
Yes.
Okay. Seeing nothing else on page 9, we then come to page 10. Mr. Stewart.
I have none.
Mr. Deek.
I couldn't find it.
I have nothing further either, so that page is approved. We then come to page 11. Mr. Stewart, anything on page 11?
I have nothing.
Mr. Deek.
Nothing on here if I do.
I have nothing on that page.
But one thing I may
Yes.
point out that that in this page, since we brought up Mountain Eye Drive, are we into the consistency whether you abbreviate or you spell it out? Because this one is spelled out on that paragraph, which is we find that the meaning of will is dependent.
Well, my thinking is, and I had this on page 9, I spelled it out, and my suggestion was going to be that it be spelled out every time.
I will do
Mr.
that.
Wheeler, does
Yes,
that
sir.
make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so wherever There's the word Mountaineer Drive. It should be spelled out rather than abbreviated. Thank you, Mr. Deek.
Yeah.
All right, so that was page 11.
Mhm.
We then come to page 12. Mr. Stewart, anything on page 12 that we need to address?
I have nothing.
Mr. Deek.
Nothing.
And I have nothing either, so there's another full approved page, Mr. Wheeler. Zipping right along to page 13, any changes, additions, deletions, Mr. Stewart?
I have none.
Mr. Deek?
No, I have none either.
And I do not have anything either. So we then come to page 14. Mr. Stewart, anything that needs to be addressed here on page 14?
The only thing that I would do is I would recommend in that finding just above paragraph number 5,
Yeah.
it says we find the findings. I would like to put in there, just to clarify, we find the plating board's findings,
Okay.
just to
That
keep
makes
that
sense.
clear.
Yes. Mr. Deek, is that agreeable?
It makes it clearer, yes.
And it's agreeable with me also, so that sentence should read, we find the plating board's findings. Mr. Wheeler, does that make sense to you?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
When we quote from the transcript, I believe it was set in different type on other, when we look at those documents
Yes.
again. Here we included the Chair Walker's findings.
Yes.
Do we need to do that as well? Because some of this is verbatim.
Cross. Well, there were, if my memory serves me correctly, there were 2 members of the planning board who had extensive comments.
Yes.
One of them was
Yep.
Cross and the other one was Walker.
Mhm. Yes.
Right.
And we cite Mr. Cross on page 13 and top of page 14. And so we are also citing Mr. Walker's findings, not in full, but partially at least. I don't have the record here in front of me. What is your suggestion?
Well, I thought that if it is reflecting of the transcript, then we may quote it and set it in italic or something. But again, I can read it. It's there. It says what it says. I just wondered if that's relevant to this discussion.
Well, Mr. Wheeler, you are the one who proposed this. What is your thought on this?
So far as I recall, Mr. Chairman, at least in the documents I've provided, in terms of both the bench memo and orders, what I've done is indented these longer quotes, but I haven't added any other stylistic change in terms of font or italicized. I can certainly do that.
Oh, I'm not pushing a change. I'm just
Okay.
asking for
You're just
clarification.
asking? I must tell you, I think it is pretty clear that this is a quote. The only thing that I find missing is that there's no reference to where in the record this quote comes from. And so I would like the record to show, and Mr. Wheeler, if you look at the transcript, I did not bring the transcript with me, but my memory serves that it is way at the end
Yes, sir, I'll find
of
it.
the transcript.
You need it, or should I?
I've got the transcript and I've got my bench memo. I think the bench memo had the site. I just,
I think you,
Because I have the actual transcript.
yeah, I have that too.
Okay.
I just need,
I stand down.
it might be faster for me to find it this way.
I think
Yes,
Walker started
92.
with-
So it's 92. Transcript 50, page 52 looks like.
no, that's, you're talking about the quote from Mr. Cross's findings, are you?
51 and 52.
Yeah, well, we're,
Cross.
Walker's missing his quote, his site as
Both
well.
do.
Well,
Yeah, they're both from 51 and 52 of the
okay,
transcript.
if you would please add that.
Yep, I just forgot to copy over the footnotes.
Transcript TR 51,
Cross. Just a second.
Where's Mr. Cross? What page?
Let's see here.
He's the one who made the motion, as I recall. I think at least.
He starts on 49.
49, okay.
Okay.
And
goes
Walker.
to, okay,
And he goes through page 50.
so it's TR 49 and 50.
Right.
That's for Mr. Cross.
And then.
So just a second.
Okay.
So there should be a footnote.
Yep, I'm going to add that in now.
If you and that changes the numbering of subsequent footnotes.
Right, it'll do it automatically here.
Okay. All right, and then we come to the quote from Chair Walker's findings. Mr. Stewart, since you seem to have that handy, what page is that on?
Walker
Page
starts on T051.
T051 and goes to.
Actually, he goes through the top of T053.
Okay. So, Mr. Wheeler, there should be another footnote for that citation.
Yes, got that.
And that, of course, moves everything else further down, from 62 on. The footnote should be 60. It should start with 64 then, rather than 62 on page 14. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Stewart, does that comport with your understanding?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Deek?
Yes, this
Okay.
this
Good.
works. Yes.
Okay, all right. Anything else that we need to address on page 14? Mr. Stewart? Anything
I have
else?
nothing further.
Mr. Deek?
No.
And I have nothing further either. We then move to page 15. Is there anything on page 15, Mr. Stewart?
I have nothing.
Mr. Deek?
No, nothing.
And I have nothing further either, so that page is okay. We then come to page 16. Mr. Stewart?
I have nothing.
Mr. Deek?
No, nothing.
And I have nothing either regarding page 16. Page 17. Mr. Stewart?
I have a couple of
Okay.
things here. On number 7,
Yes.
I was thinking it would be prudent to add at the end of that timely.
Yeah, untimely. Yes.
I'm sorry, untimely. And we can discuss this, and I would read it. And even if it was considered to be timely, the predominant reason the variance was granted was due to topographical features in accordance with AMC 2108.030F.6.A.
Okay, so you have lost me here.
What I'm doing is
I'm writing very slowly here.
Okay.
So what you're adding is, after the word untimely, make a comma, all right? And even if it was timely, and then what do you add?
the predominant reason.
The predominant.
And
Reason, go on.
the variance was granted
Yes.
was due to topographical
Graphical
features
features, yes.
in accordance with AMC 21.
Just one second.
Oh, okay.
With AMC
21 dot
21.08
point 030
030
F point 6,
6. Okay.
point A,
Point A.
comma,
Okay.
and the removal
And the removal
of the phasing
of phasing, yeah,
restriction does not disturb
not disturb
the variance approval
the approval. All right, Mr. Wheeler, you are the one who has been furiously typing along. Did you get that all?
Yes.
All right.
and I
so
just
that-
added in S12420. I just thought that needed to be in there.
Sure.
1,
To really
2,
close
4,
that loop.
2, 0. Did you add that?
I did.
Good. All right,
You
so
typed
that
fast.
paragraph 7 reads all together. Let's see if I got this right here. The allegation regarding the grant of the cul-de-sac variance is untimely, comma, and even if it was timely, comma, the predominant reason the variance was granted was due to topographical features in accordance with AMC 21.08.030 F.6.A, comma, and the removal of the phasing restriction does not disturb the variance approval in S-12420.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing that I have not been doing in this case or the other cases is or at least in this case, I have not been putting the dash in all the citations to either S12420 or
Yeah, that was-
I think we should, because that's the way it's described, isn't it, Madam Clerk?
I believe there was no dash in the plotting board's documents.
Nothing in the, no dash in the minute.
Let's look at the application. 'cause generally
Okay,
it-
well then
there is-
I'm wrong, and we simply delete the dash at the end of what I just read.
I think actually they
Okay.
usually use it.
Yeah, they don't use the dash in
Okay,
the
all right, I'm
transcript
wrong.
either.
You are right, and we remove the dash. Okay. Anything else? We need, Mr.
Yes.
Deek.
Yes, on this one actually I had a different approach, and that was that to me the language itself, the allegation regarding the granting of the cul-de-sac variance is untimely. That's how I read this one.
Yes.
I would say that while not opposing the clarification to this particular finding, I do think that us stating a finding and then stating something which would support a contrary finding, which is we agree with the variance being timely. I would not. I would go more conservative on that. We found that the variance was untimely because it was decided by the original case as
So-
12450, I believe, and the new case was the amendment case had no challenge to the actual variance.
So, in other words, you would leave out the entire alternative, even if it was timely, etc., etc.
I would. That's
You would
yes.
leave that out.
Yes, I thought I was fine with what was here except the granting versus grant.
Okay.
But at the same time, I'm not opposing that because I don't think I'm equipped to know whether it's helpful for this case if it is reviewed to include that.
I must tell you, I agree with that last comment, and so I would prefer that if we leave in whatever Mr. Stewart has proposed and what I read, except for the word grant needs to be changed to granting in the very first line. Mr. Stewart, anything else regarding that?
No.
All right, so we are, and Mr. Deek, anything further?
No, I'm good with this. That
All
one,
right,
yeah.
okay. Mr. Wheeler, does it make sense? Are you in agreement with that, or what's your thought?
Well, I'm not exactly sure where we are, sir. I think
We're on
Mr. Stewart
7.
proposed. No, I mean
I just proposed
You
it.
proposed some
We're
language.
Yes,
discussing.
and
just-
we're just simply discussing
Yes.
that proposed amendment.
Gotcha.
And it seems like we are in the affirmative that
If
we
we
accept
are
it.
in the affirmative, there three of us who agree that it should be worded the way Mr. Stewart proposed and what I read.
Great, I have that.
Okay, and you're in agreement that
Yes, sir.
that's okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Anything further regarding page 17?
Yes, on
Mr. Stewart.
11,
Yes.
I would like to add in the phrase at the end,
Following the word record.
yes,
Yes.
and comma, and meet the requirements of AMC 21.11.304.
Mr. Stewart, as a friendly amendment, so to speak, did you say AMC or AMCR? I believe 2011.
AMCR.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry.
All right.
I did say AMC.
Give us the citation once more, please.
AMCR
Yes.
21.11.304.
Okay.
And then that would, if you agree that we're going to add that, then it would be a comma after in the first line, after decision, and delete and.
Oh, I see. The decision, comma, and meet the requirements.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Deep, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does.
By way of, okay, and it's agreeable with me. Mr. Wheeler, just to be on the safe side, as you're the scrivener here,
Yes, sir.
did you understand what was to be added and deleted in paragraph 11?
Yes.
Okay. So that the paragraph then reads, the planning board's findings are sufficient to understand the decision, comma, and meet the requirements of AMCR 21.11.
Yeah.
And are supported.
We are supported by the record.
We are leaving that? I thought
Yeah.
we just deleted that.
No, we just deleted
Just
the
the
and.
word
Oh,
and.
the word and. Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, so that the sentence reads, the planning board's findings are sufficient to understand the decisions, comma, are supported and meet the requirements of AMCR 21.
Mr. Chair, not quite there yet. I think what we're trying to do is, because we added another segment to this sentence, so
Yes.
now we are going to decision, comma, are supported by the record, comma, and meet the requirements.
Yes.
Okay, so there you want another comma there. Okay, all right. All right, good. Mr. Wheeler, do you have that?
Yes, sir.
Is that agreeable?
Yes, sir.
All right, and I take it it's agreeable with Mr. Stewart
Yes.
and Mr. Deek and myself.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Stewart, anything else on
Two
page?
more minor issues.
Okay,
On 14,
yes.
I would like to change the word adjudicate to adjudicated.
Good catch.
Good catch, yes. And anything else
On,
regarding?
no, and on 16, rather than judiciable, it would be either you can put in justiciable or judicable.
So that's in the middle of that paragraph where it says judiciable.
Yeah,
You want to change that word to what?
I think it should be either justiciable or judicable.
I like the word justiciable.
We've used
There.
that prior, justiciable in the prior.
Yes.
Uh,
I
That's in
think they're both
paragraph
adjectives,
16.
they both mean the same thing.
how are you spelling your suggestion? Because I can't. I'm not getting that on good old Google here.
JUSTICIABLE.
Indeed.
Okay. Defined as a matter which is capable of being adjudicated by the body.
Yes.
All right.
And it means virtually the same thing as judicable, but they're both adjectives.
Gotcha.
Correct. Mr. Deek, are you in agreement on that? With those two changes, we're talking about one minor change in paragraph 14 that adds the letter D after adjudicate. And in paragraph 16, we changed the word judiciable to justiciable.
I was actually going to note the 14 myself, and I am accepting 16 without any comment.
Okay, thank you, and I do too.
Good minds think together.
And Mr. Wheeler, are you with us on this?
I am, sir.
All right. Okay. Seeing no further changes on page 17, there's really nothing, and my name is even spelled correctly, which I really appreciate. I think we've got everything else that is correct. Or do you see any changes in terms of the certificate of service? That's basically what we're talking about.
I have none.
Okay, Mr. Deek.
The only thing is that the petitioners list 2 names but only 1 email. Does it matter?
Yeah, I think they were running from the same email
Yeah, I
address
think
for
so.
both.
I think that's true, Mr. Wheeler. Could you, and maybe that's where we should somewhere spell out that there are really 2. They're husband and wife. We know that, but we call them appellant, singular. Does that cause a problem here? You know, we had at some point in some other case, I know there was an argument made that we should have said appellants or plural as opposed to singular.
Mr. Chairman, they filed a singular
Yeah.
appeal.
Okay.
And so.
Both of them together?
Correct.
Okay.
There's a singular notice of appeal and reply that they
Okay.
filed, so I've treated them as a singular unit for purposes of the appeal.
Okay.
And with that in mind, it's just the one address, the one email address
Right.
for service.
But the very front page says appellants Birnbaum and Dukoff.
Understood.
Okay. If that's cool.
It says appellants Birnbaum and Dukoff, quoted as Birnbaum, or really, we should say appellant, comma, Birnbaum, quote unquote, or appellant, to make sure that the 2 of them are addressed as appellant.
Okay. Now it's clear to
You
me.
see what I'm saying,
Yeah.
Mr. Wheeler?
First paragraph of the
Yes.
order,
Yes.
what would you like there?
Where it says appellants Birnbaum and Dukoff,
Mhm.
and then you have in parentheses, quote, Birnbaum, make a comma, and type in appellant, quote unquote appellant. So that it's clear that the appellants are addressed either as Birnbaum or as appellant. And that then brings me to the only change on page 18, where it talks about petitioners, Ellen Birnbaum and Ruth Dukoff. It should say appellants instead of petitioners.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, may I change respondent to appellee?
Yes,
Yes.
please. Anything else on page 18? I don't see anything, I must say. All right, so having gone through this with a fine-tooth comb, I will then entertain a motion to approve the proposed findings and decisions.
So moved.
Has been moved by Mr. Stewart, and I assume seconded
Yes.
by Mr. D.
Correct.
Mr. Stewart, any further discussion?
No.
Okay, Mr. Deek, anything further regarding the motion?
Just, I guess, almost customary thank you for Dennis.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right, and I have nothing further. We're then ready to vote on the motion, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Buchal,
Yes,
Mr. Deek,
Yes.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes.
and the record should reflect that the proposed findings and decisions were adopted by this board by vote of 3-0. Is there anything further that we need to discuss regarding the appeal case 2021-2? Mr. Stewart, do you have anything else?
I
you
would
wish
just
to-
like to piggyback on to what Mr. Diak said. Dennis, council, thanks very much for your work on this.
You're welcome.
It's much appreciated because was very complicated.
Mr. Deek, anything further regarding that case that you wish to address?
I'm not going to repeat it, but I agree.
Yeah, you did a terrific job, Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, before you leave the case, for your convenience, I've just emailed the final as edited and approved to Jennifer. So in theory, if she were to print it as soon as this meeting is concluded,
When
you
we
can
are
sign it
done
before you
here,
go.
I will stay and you run it off and I will sign it right then and there.
That would be great.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right. So we then come to the next item on the agenda, and that is member comments. Being the chair, I will exercise my authority and start out here, and that is that I'm not, Madam Clerk, first of all, before I address this, the last pending appeal was withdrawn, isn't that correct?
Yes, sir.
So there is nothing further pending before this board at the present time. Is
That's
that correct? Okay. So having verified that, I must say that this has been, so to speak, the swan song of two esteemed members, Mr. Stewart and Mr. Deek, because apparently, Mr. Deek, there is no movement in the mayor's office to have you reappointed at the present time. And unless that changes, this is was your last meeting today. And Mr. Stewart has not even re-upped on his own and wants to get on to greener pastures someplace else. So it falls to me to thank both of you. You have been extremely valuable members of this board, and as chair, I have been very appreciative of your participation. You have not been potted plants, neither one of you. Mr. Stewart, you are always good at finding details, and today's discussion regarding certain decisions here just points that out. And so I want to thank you specifically for that, for being my ears and eyes, so to speak, of details that would otherwise have escaped us. But also substantively, you have been very valuable, and you have served on the board for many years, and I think everybody who has come into contact with you regarding this has appreciated your service.
Thank you.
So I want to thank you for that. Mr. Deek, I have always relied on you for substantive comments, I want you to know, and they have without fail been extremely valuable, based on your experience, your extensive experience in land use planning and in knowledge of the code. And so I want to thank you specifically for that. You have not served as long as some of us have on this board, but you have been an extremely valuable member. And I, for one, am sorry that apparently your time is up, as they say. Doesn't mean this is a small community, and I am sure we will run into each other somewhere down the road. So I want to thank you very much for all that you have done for this board. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay. That leaves, Madam Clerk, that leaves only two members of the board, and that is Nancy Pease and myself. And that means that the board cannot function at the present time, because it requires 3 people to have a meeting and to make decisions on behalf of the Board of Adjustment. That is of serious concern to me. And that is something that needs to be remedied pronto, because this is a board that serves on an ad hoc basis. Whenever there's a need for us to spring into action, we do. And since we don't know when the next appeal is going to be filed, this is a serious issue that needs to be addressed. And I would appreciate it if between you and the city clerk, you would alert the appropriate offices in the mayor's office to that problem.
Yes, Mr. Chair, it's the clerk's office to intention to do so. As
Okay.
you know, appointees come from the mayor's office,
Yes.
not from the assembly, so we will do what we can to contact them and let them
Point
know
out the
just what
problem.
you said. Mhm.
Okay, all right. And if there's anything that I can do, or that Nancy Pease can do, or that the two of us together can do to expedite that process, please know that we're always available for it. Okay. All right, that's my comment. Mr. Stewart, anything further you wish to add?
I was just wondering if the mayor does want you back on, keep you on. Are you opposed to that?
Oh no, actually, just as a member comment, then let's just comment together.
Okay.
So right now, by the clock, we're not expired yet because I think the time is up till January something when we fully expire by code, if I remember correctly. 120 days.
You
right?
believe 120 days past your October 15th.
15. So it's November, December, January, somewhere in there. So there is a reasonable chance that any action within that time frame will still call upon us, and any action in this case obviously won't be an appeal, but any kind of communication. So my application is in. I got a very strange letter, and I'm waiting for the administration to do what the administration needs to do, which is appoint members. Whenever they decide to do that, I will respond accordingly, and to this date, I haven't heard anything. So I talked to Jennifer about this. I mentioned it to you and to the chair, and then we'll see where it goes. That's all we can do.
Okay.
I agree.
Is there
I agree.
anything that prohibits any of us, well, especially me, since I'm expired anyway, except for that extension through, I think it's the first part of February.
Yes, I think so.
Are we conflicted out with by talking to the mayor's office independently?
No, I don't
certainly
think so.
wouldn't think so. You are more than welcome to send a message to the mayor's office. I can get you a couple of contacts. They've had a lot of appointees on their plate since coming into office, so it could be just that they haven't gotten to this board yet. They've done a lot of appointments, so I think it would be fine and good if you wanted to contact them, and
Okay.
we will as well.
I think that would be very
I'm gonna do
appropriate.
that.
Would be very appropriate for you to do. I have done that in the past, and I intend to do that again.
Okay,
Um,
good.
But the real point of my comments was, and the reason that I think, unless Mr. Deek gets reappointed, there is no pending appeal right now. But the way things work in terms of timing,
Yeah.
there wouldn't be enough time
No, not that.
to complete an
Right.
appeal, even if it were filed tomorrow.
No, absolutely.
You're right.
So that's why I'm saying I'm so sorry. It appears at present that that's where we are. Now, I do know that there are two persons who have applied to be appointed. And I have not heard word one about those applications, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Yep.
Okay?
So that's where we are.
There it is.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Wheeler, any further comments?
No, sir.
Seeing none, I think we are then adjourned, and the record should show that it is.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr.
Number 8.
Wheeler.
Audience
Oh, audience participation. I'm so sorry. Thank you for keeping me on the straight and narrow. We then come to item number 8, audience participation. But if you wish to participate, please note that you may not discuss any specific pending case that we have addressed here. It is simply that you can address general matters to this board if you wish to do so. So do we have any audience participation with that limitation stated? Hearing none, item number 8 is then concluded, and we are then hustling towards adjournment, and the clock should show that it is 10:50 a.m. today.